First of all, happy Thanksgiving. Always a pleasure to chat with you. So send what you're thankful for in the comments. But let's talk about Thanksgiving because some of you are probably concerned about the travel conditions. And we're going to focus on the travel conditions for Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, which will likely be affected by some snow. Not just the lake effect snow that we're going to see during the Thanksgiving holiday, but later on, we're going to see a couple systems make their way through that could bring some further snow. So I personally love the snow, thankful for it. But when you're traveling, it's not really the best thing to have happen. So time is 9:54 p.m. and it is November 24th. Also, you might notice my mic is stood up by a New Testament survey book. I don't have a mic stand yet. Coming soon, hopefully. But excuse me, let's dive right in. So what we're dealing with right now is we have a warm pattern that is kind of still in place. We're in the 50s, been in the 50s for a couple days, okay? We've seen this warmer mass kind of settle it, or this ridge that's kind of settled in. What you notice on this backside is you have a trough starting to dip in on the backside of this low pressure system. Again, these low pressure systems kind of like to ride between the ridges and troughs because, again, that counterclockwise motion that you start to see with the warm air rising and the cool air sinking down on the backside of the low pressure system kind of really forms about well in those places. So that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with this pattern. And what's going to happen with this low pressure system is, first of all, this is Tuesday morning. You got this rainfall that is on the warmer side of it, and it's going to bring some rain to Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. Again, primary focus for this video, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio between now and December 2nd. So you have that rain moving through. You have this snow on the backside. Let's send it forward. What you notice is that this trough begins to deepen over portions of Minnesota and Iowa. You start to see this little line of rain start to form on the front edge of it, likely the cold front with this little system make its way through. But as it progresses forward, you can see low pressure continues to deepen, kind of starts to get that heavy snow pocket on the northern fringe as you see that moisture start to dip in from the south. And then that's going to just enable quite a bit of snow to fall across the western UP. So again, if you're traveling up to the western UP, impacts are going to be felt for you as early as Tuesday afternoon and into Wednesday. So that's going to bring not just heavy snow, but strong winds. As that trough deepens on the back side, what you can see is those isobars getting closer together, and that's indicating an increase in wind speeds at the surface level as well. Where you have tightening isobars, it's usually a better indicator of where the strong winds are on the surface. So what you have is that counterclockwise motion. You're likely to have some strong westerlies and northwesterlies on the backside of this system making its way through, and a sharp decrease in temperatures from the 50s down towards the 30s, and we're going to start to get sub-freezing at some point. So this is actually going to be a good setup for some lake effect snow. I mean, you can see this deepening low making its way through, and what's going to happen is, again, you still have those very warm lake temperatures, and as that evaporation takes place at the surface, and you see a rapid decrease in temperatures. Typically, it's about a 23-degree temperature difference between the surface and a couple thousand feet in the air. That's where you start to see your formation of your lake effect snow. Okay, and that pattern is going to be in a nicely well set, I guess, place for it. So notice, as this low makes its way through, we're on the cold side, you see lake effect snow ongoing across pretty much all the UP and portions of West Michigan, and then even getting into portions of Eastern Michigan as well. Might even see some lake effect snow because the winds amongst this thing are going to be quite strong. We're going to talk about how strong they could get. Wouldn't be surprised if there'd be a couple power outages, so plan accordingly for that if you happen to be in this area. But I do think Michigan's going to see the brunt of this system around the Thanksgiving time frame, so it's going to be something you want to be aware of, especially if you're traveling. Traveling's going to be the big concern. Power outages, yes, they will likely happen, but again, I'm not thinking widespread. I'm thinking probably sporadic, and you'll see some places that hopefully will cook their turkey beforehand because it's not fun to eat a cold turkey. So make sure to just keep that in mind. But progressing forward, you can see the lake effect kind of lasts even into Thanksgiving Day. You still have that northwesterly flow, that deep trough that's starting to settle over much of the eastern continent of the United States. Again, we've been talking about the Thanksgiving time frame for a while and how the system is coming through. It hasn't panned out as well as what a lot of people have said. Some people were talking about a major blizzard, which again, there's gonna be a lot of snow in some places in Michigan. So Michigan's sort of playing out with that. But again, this setup is really primarily focused on the Midwestern and Great Lakes regions, I would say. So progressing forward, you do have that lake effect snow that is going to continue into Friday. And a little bit further into Saturday, we're going to start paying attention to another system that might be making its way into the Great Lakes that could bring even more system snow actually at this time. But I want to focus on the lake effect snow first because this is right on the Thanksgiving time frame. Let's go to progressing this up to the Wednesday time frame to start to see that make its way through. So notice here, Minnesota, okay? You start to see this low make its way through sometime during Tuesday afternoon. And notice how on the eastern side you have that warm air making its way up into north on the northern side of the low, and you start to see that transition to snow across portions of northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, and then out into the Dakotas. Now, as you can see, as we go into a few hours later, you start to see that line of rain start to form ahead of that cold front, which again, am I expecting really anything to come from that? Not necessarily. The only thing that we need to be watching for on the back side of this is that increase in wind speeds that makes its way through. Progressing forward, you can see that widespread snow starts to take place over across the Keweenaw Peninsula, northern Wisconsin, parts of Minnesota. Progressing forward, you see as that front moves through on the backside, that low continues to deepen. You've got really tight isobars between portions of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and now starting to make its way into Michigan. You've got a strong, probably northwesterly wind making its way in, which is going to enhance the lake effect snow machine that develops into Wednesday afternoon. So again, my recommendation, if you're going to Michigan, leave before or try to get there before Wednesday afternoon, particularly West Michigan people, Wednesday afternoon. And for people traveling to Eastern Michigan, try to get there before Wednesday evening because this lake effect snow machine is going to take off on Wednesday. And with how strong the winds are expected to be, and I'm thinking maybe even up to 40 to 50 miles per hour gusts, that's going to bring some pretty decent travel headaches for that region. So you're going to want to keep that in mind if you are traveling for this Thanksgiving holiday. So let's continue. You see the Lake Effect Snow Machine is carrying not just moisture from Lake Michigan, but all the way from Lake Superior across into Lake Michigan and then sending it pretty far into portions of Michigan. Notice how this dynamic is setting up. You've got a northerly flow across portions of the Upper Peninsula, and as that northerly flow develops, you got that banding of snow across portions of it going over Lake Michigan, and then with the lake effect snow machine still initialized in Michigan as well, or in the western lower Michigan areas, you start to see that wind shift to northwesterly westerly. This is honestly the location of this system is pretty much an ideal slam dunk setup in terms of location for the lake effect snow machine. I'm not talking about a lot of snow in terms of this area, mainly due to the fact that there's going to be a lot of wind with this. It's going to carry those clouds really quickly. But the fact of the matter is the location of this low in giving us this wind dynamic where it shifts into portions of Michigan, it's kind of giving us a nice widespread snow event for the Great Lakes region. Now, in terms of accumulations, I think those accumulations are mainly going to be primarily targeting around the western UP and the Lake Michigan shoreline, but places further east will likely see even just a little bit of snow. And when that snow falls, it could lead to some decent travel headaches, mainly because of the visibility issues with how wind-driven this snow will be on the backside of this. So let's take a look at the snow accumulations as projected by the 0Z. And again, we're only going to get this through Wednesday at 7 p.m. So keep that in mind. But here's the forecasted snow totals by the HRRR. Notice, that's kind of what I was saying, okay? Widespread snow is going to happen. However, it's not really going to accumulate on the east side. It will be enough to maybe reduce visibility and cause some issues there. But you notice the primary places that do have snow accumulation, West Michigan. Really not that much snow accumulation. You're going to say, yeah, that's really not that bad. However, when you have strong winds like that, and you have banding of snow like that, that can still lead to some visibility issues. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the Upper Peninsula, you're going to be slammed, basically, with snow. Notice, your snow accumulations are going to be over a foot of snow in quite a few areas. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're traveling to the western UP and you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving with family and friends up there, make sure to have some nice tunnels dug. That's just a joke, but you're going to have some decent snow in that particular region. So keep that in mind. Now, this is what is showing for the snow totals based on the HRRR until 8 p.m. Wednesday. But take a look at the wind gusts too. Okay, the wind gusts are going to be something we want to watch out for. As that system makes its way in, notice that again that trough is deepening. When a trough typically deepens, usually increase the wind speeds on the backside. Look at this. The HRRR is even showing wind gusts of 60 to 70 miles per hour in portions of Iowa and Minnesota as that trough begins to deepen. And once it reaches the Michigan area, notice wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour in portions of the UP. Okay, these gusts. Again, would not be surprised if we were dealing with blizzard-like conditions up there. Definitely going to have some really decent snow up there. The winter is going to come with a wallop to welcome itself into the Upper Peninsula. And notice, as we get to Wednesday afternoon, wind gusts increase rather significantly across portions of Lake Michigan. That will kick up the waves, but not just kick up the waves, it'll also intensify, the snow in terms of visibility, and visibility will likely go down in those heavier snow bands. So that's something to keep in mind for travel. But you can see those winds kind of hit the shoreline. Would not be surprised if we dealt with some power outages along the Lake Michigan shoreline and areas around there, because those are some pretty strong, pretty impressive winds for that area. So it's something you definitely want to keep in mind if you're traveling Wednesday evening. And again, would I recommend travel Wednesday evening along Lake Michigan shoreline? No. Wednesday evening further inland, you'll deal with some visibility issues, you'll deal with some wind. But I'm really thinking it's more along the lines of western Michigan and particularly the Upper Peninsula. So that's something we want to keep in mind. Okay. Now, you notice here. Let's go a little bit further out down the line to post Thanksgiving. So there's that system making its way through. That's the Euro, showing that. We'll look at snow totals on the Euro in just a second. Progressing it forward, lake effect snow machine continues into Friday, and kind of filter tapers off. We start to see kind of a moderation in that with that low pressure system moving off to the east. We start to kind of see being on the cold side of, or the cold air mass that's going to kind of take place. And then notice here, a new system starts to take hold. You're starting to see it enter that area where Gulf of Mexico moisture is coming, making its way in. And then it's actually going to bring system snow, which will bring more of a widespread accumulating snowfall to much of Michigan and portions of northern Indiana, northern Ohio on Sunday, okay, or Saturday night into Sunday. So that system's going to move through Sunday. And then on the back side of that, we'll have to keep tabs on the potential for maybe even a little more lake effect snow. Let's go a little bit further range model here. And you notice lake effect snow continuing once again for portions of northern Michigan and the northern Upper Peninsula. You kind of got a nice cold air mass making its way in with temperatures coming in at 1 a.m. on Monday of 9 degrees across portions of the Upper Peninsula. So welcome winter. It is time to take shape. Now, the thing is, this is something that I'm not really surprised about in terms of the winter getting started at this time, because again, we are in La Nina pattern. La Nina patterns typically associate themselves with cooler and more wet winter seasons. So it's something that honestly, it makes sense that winter is welcoming itself in this way to the Great Lakes region. So not really surprised in that regard. But as you can see, if you continue on the models, and again, once we get to the long range models, we want to be careful not to go too deep, because weather models do change frequently. They are useful for forecasting, but one model should not be taken as what will certainly happen. So we continue forward. You can see we're kind of in a dynamic pattern with a lot of changes taking shape, with a lot of lows coming through, with a lot of systems that, and again, this right here is a pretty extreme look for any type of system. Yeah, I doubt this will be the case in the next 6 hours. So that's why long range models go a little crazy. But nevertheless, I think the pattern's going to remain relatively dynamic. We'll see systems make their way through that bring some snow to the Great Lakes region. And so it's something you want to keep in mind. I would say the best option for travel for Thanksgiving people is Tuesday, and getting here in Michigan before Wednesday. If you're coming to the lower Michigan. In the Upper Peninsula, you probably want to leave sooner rather than later. I will say that because you're going to be dealing with a lot of snow in the Upper Peninsula. You won't be dealing with as much snow down here in Lower Michigan, but you will be dealing with that wind-driven element of strong winds coming across Lake Michigan, potential for some power outages, maybe even some fallen tree limbs, things like that. And then at the same time, the reduced visibility due to the snowfall, which could accumulate quickly in some places, leading to slick road travel in addition to strong winds. So we want to keep that in mind and just keep that in consideration as we travel. This is all for your information. We just want to stay safe out on the roadways, and we might be out chasing. We'll see what happens. But right now, Thanksgiving, it's kind of a season to be with family and things like that. So we'll take into consideration and see what happens. But thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to our Saturday train chase that we did. That was a pretty fun time with our crew, and hoping for more just like that. So thanks for watching once again, and we will see you all in a little bit.